Hello, everybody. Hello. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday, February 25th. And we know that because we have it written right here in capital letters to remind us, because who would ever know what day it is? Here we are still. It is 2021, and we are still here in this pandemic as we approach our 365th day of singing together in this room. Who would have ever thought when we started that this is what we're going to be doing? Welcome to everybody in this room who has become a solid piece of this community in all of the ways that we are able to get through this together. I'm grateful for your presence and very, very grateful that we're going to get a chance to sing today with Mr. Joe Jencks. So welcome to everybody out there on Facebook Live and to everybody in this room to the daily antidote of song. Hello to Joe, who's singing with us today, and hello to Katie, who's running the tech for us. Thank you, Katie. Arlene in California, Anna in Maryland, Becky in Vancouver, Susan in Ohio, Sue in California, David in upstate New York, Sarah in Texas, Carolyn in Idaho, and Janet in Georgia. Dennis, hello, nice to see you today, coming in from British Columbia, and Kathy in Virginia. Susan, hello, nice to have you with us today, and Dagmar, glad you're back with us again, I think Philadelphia. Hello to Anne, nice to have you with us today, and Caroline in Maryland, hello, and hello to your cute little guy there. Hello, Sandy in Severna Park, and hello, Bonnie in Idaho. Francis in Virginia, Sheila in Florida, Renata in Wisconsin, hello, Rosalie in Michigan, and Christiana and Bob in Rockville, and Dick in Victoria, and Susan in Seattle, and Lisa in Indiana, and Gary in Western Mass. Hello, Kevin in New Hampshire with a bright and cheerful shirt on. Hello to Susan, nice to have you today. And Deli, hello in Maryland. And Anne, hello in Maryland. Tom in Victoria. Jamie in BC. Hello, Anne in New York. And Fred with a great background in Maryland. Hello, Valerie in Kentucky. Hetty in Georgia. Dion in Massachusetts. Hello, Kate in Charlottesville. Hello, Miriam and Mabel in Massachusetts, and Sandy in the Yukon, and Lynn in Connecticut, and Susan in Idaho. Glad you're back today. Deborah in Kentucky. Nancy, hello. Martha in Oregon, hello. And hello to all the folks off of video. There are many of you off video today. Marnie and Sandra and Sarah and Brian and Amos and Carol and Alan and Lois and Gwen and Storm and Adrian and so many more. And I'm sorry, Thomasina, I think I just saw. Sorry if I missed you. And I hope you'll still be here when we say goodbye at the end. And hello also to all the folks who are just jumping in the room now. It's such a really beautiful thing for all of us to be able to say hello to each other through me. Sorry that I'm the only one you're hearing, but the hellos that I give are from all of us and for all of us. And I'm really glad that we can do this with each other on your basic, average, not average 2021 and not average Thursday. So thank you again for being here. The lyrics are going to be in the chat. The donate link is in the chat. My email is always in the chat. If you're not already on our email list, or if you just want to connect, I'm happy to hear from anybody ever. And I'm going to thank Katie again for running the tech. And Joe Jencks is an artist who has been in this room with us fairly regularly, although we missed him very much in the last 6 weeks or something that it's been since he's been here. So can we please give Joe a huge warm welcome? And Joe, we're really excited to sing with you. Can you tell us about your song and add anything to what I shared with you?
Sure, thank you. Delighted to pinch hit here today. I understand there was maybe somebody else who was going to be here, and it's just always my pleasure to have time with all of you. I was with you on the solstice last, I think, or just right after the solstice. And what an eventful couple of months it's been. Good Lord. But so glad to be here with all of you. I'm going to lead off today with a song that I researched as part of a project I did last summer for the archives of American folk music at the Library of Congress. It's called "O Ye Prodigal Son." And I learned this from one of the John A. Lomax and Ruby Tier Lomax recordings that was done at the Rayford Prison in Florida, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 1939. And what's amazing about this song, it was done by four men, sort of a gospel quartet, and it was very early. The gospel medium as a form. Thomas A. Dorsey from Chicago really is understood to be sort of the founder of it, and he was the founder of an association of gospel choirs internationally in the late 20s and into the 30s. So in 1939, this was still a fairly new form of music because it was mostly being spread by sheet music, not by mass media. And the thing that's most amazing to me about the vibe of this song is that there was kind of a motive power when you heard these four men singing it a cappella that just had this groove and this motion and this movement. And it was basically something that wouldn't emerge again in pop culture until the heart of Motown. And the idea that it was existing a quarter of a century earlier within black musical culture in the prison in Rayford, Florida, was just astonishing to me. And it's just a beautiful song. So the chorus goes, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. That's it. That's the whole chorus. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. Oh, I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. And you can feel the sort of motive power in the cadence of those words. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I was talking with a friend of mine about why these ideas were so powerful in black culture. I was talking to a black minister friend of mine, and he said, you know, this is so important because the people that know nothing but suffering and oppression in this life need the hope in their theology. It had to do with the context of why certain progressive churches kind of get it wrong when trying to figure out how to relate to communities of color. And it has to do with the idea of dispensing with theology entirely, not being something that's attractive to people who are oppressed. So you see a lot of working class people, a lot of people of color gravitating toward churches that have within them some message of liberation or salvation. And as we saw in the civil rights movement, past and present, sometimes these messages of theological liberation and real world political liberation go hand in hand. And so this song can be understood in the context of Christian scriptural music, but it also absolutely needs to be understood in the context of the political and societal liberation that this is emblematic of, the movement that this stood for. And to understand that the civil rights movement, as we think of it in a modern context, begins not in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or even the 30s. It begins with the abolitionist movement and the Emancipation Proclamation, and it moves forward through all of the acts of liberation and the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman. How about the movement for a $20 bill with Harriet Tubman on it? How cool is that? Love to see that happen. But the lessons that came out of that and the organizing into the early labor movement in the 1880s and 90s, and the lessons from that into the women's suffrage movement, and the lessons taken from that led to the Highlander Center being founded in 1929 to bring black and white workers together to have a conversation about integrating the trades. All of this leads into this moment in 1939 where these men are singing this song in the Rayford prison and singing about liberation on many, many levels. Oh, ye prodigal son, oh, ye prodigal son, oh, ye prodigal son, and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. Was a prodigal son, he was a fall-away child. A father he wouldn't obey, so he left his father's house. He thought he was going astray. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. He was sleeping at night in a stable bed, begging by the side of the road, wishing only to be in his father's house, or just to carry a servant's load. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. His father saw him coming, met him with a smile, threw his loving arms around him, crying, "This is my darling child." I believe it, I believe it, I go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I go back home and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I go back home and be a servant of the Lord. Be a servant of the Lord. I'm gonna be a servant of the Lord.
Joe Jencks, thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely my pleasure.
So this is at least the second archive song that you brought to us. The very first time you sang with us, you sang Battle Axe, which was also, I think, part of that same project. And your interpretations of these songs are so stunning. They're just like so deep and rich and all this resonance. And then you added the notion of hearing the I believe it motion in there, which is almost like the footsteps walking home, the person who's like moving in a direction. Like, I don't know how you do it. It's lovely and amazing and so full. And thank you.
You're very welcome, Joe, and thanks to everybody here that's been tuning in for the daily antidote of song now for, as you say, coming up on a year. This is just a remarkable thing. None of us imagined a year ago that we would still be gathering this way, but it's an incredibly beautiful thing that binds us to each other across the distances and helps us understand that community is a matter of choice and a matter of the heart, not necessarily a matter of proximity or geography. And it's such a pleasure to consider myself to be in community with all of you. Really great to be here. There's a link at the very top of the chat that's posted in there that will take you to a page on my website that gives you an essay about this music and gives you some links to the Library of Congress original recordings if you want to go back and hear the original recordings. And I kind of geeked out hardcore on some of this. So there's some lengthy sort of musicology footnotes about all of these songs, about what I was able to glean from these old field recordings that were done on these old sort of Bakelite discs with aluminum acetate coating, and they had two styluses. One would drop and could cut the grooves that were the signal, and the other was capable of then playing back what had been put in the grooves. But they were moving through a lot of music fast, and so some of the songs, they didn't record entire songs; they recorded most of it. And so I pulled some lyrics from liner notes, like handwritten pencil notes on the dust jackets of these one-off recordings. Um, and in this case, I went and found there was a gospel quartet that had done a radio version of this song in the early 40s, and I don't know if it follows after or if it precedes the version that I heard on the Lomax recording. But they only had two verses as well. And to me, if you read the Christian scriptural passage, there's a third part of the story that is so important, which is when the prodigal son wakes up and realizes that he's been misguided, that he's misunderstood where his place was in the world. And he says, even the servants in my father's house are allowed the scraps from my father's table. The servants are treated better. The dogs are allowed the scraps. The servants are treated better than that. And maybe it wasn't so bad where I came from. And then, of course, this opens up the whole struggle within the sibling set of relationships about, well, this is the one who defied you and went away, and he's come back home, and why is he being celebrated? And the father just kind of says, basically, until you have kids of your own, you're really not going to understand. But that's just how it is. Get over it. I have loved you always. You are here always. It's just, there's so many rich layers to interpret this music on, and so many ways in which I think it's so important not to toss the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to music that's derived from sacred texts of any tradition, because there's so much great literature in there and so much great human narrative. And to recognize that over hundreds and thousands of years, that the heart of that human narrative and the things that we struggle with really hasn't changed that much. And so a song like this keeps me humble in all the right ways, because it reminds me that I'm just one tiny link in a chain of humanity, and that things I struggle with, people were struggling with a few thousand years ago, and we might still be struggling with it a few thousand years from now, because it's just part of how we're wired mentally and emotionally, that there are times that are difficult. And you would say, well, God, where is there hopefulness in that? But the hopefulness is an understanding that maybe if we're struggling with it, it isn't our fault that we're struggling with it, that this is hardwired into who we are as human beings, and we can work to transcend it. But it allows us not to shame ourselves when we walk into those tough moments, if we can have the humility to understand how we fit into the bigger picture of humanity. And that's what these songs give to me, is an awareness that I can keep working for liberation. I can keep working for civil rights and social justice. I can keep working on my own personal development and liberation. And when I walk into a brick wall, it's not because I'm not smart enough or not creative enough or somehow not agile enough to have sidestepped the brick wall. It's because sometimes there are just brick walls. And so let's sing this chorus one more time, just a few times through, to get a little bit of that hopefulness going in us. I'm going to sing the last verse into the chorus, because I love that last verse. It's how all of us want to be greeted. And then I'll wrap up with a different song entirely. His father saw him coming, met him with a smile, threw his loving arms around him, crying, this is my darling child. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home. I believe it, I believe it, I will go back home and be a servant of the Lord. Be a servant of the Lord. I'm gonna be a servant of the Lord. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to tie in quickly that song before you go to the next one, that notion that right now as a nation, there are people who are lost, or there are people who are adrift, or we thinking back to that call them out and call that back in that we heard from Chris Matthews, like that notion that we need to open our hearts and welcome people back or welcome them in is so significant to right now, and not to fault anybody for whatever has gone before, but to just try and look at where they are now. They've showed back up. That's great. Let's work together.
Yeah, Maya Angelou said, I'm sure she wasn't the first, but she's the person I heard say it. You do the best you can with what you know, but once you know better, do better.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think there's something to be said for that. And so, yeah, we can seek to know better and seek to do better, and still sidestep the shame that prevents us from actually doing it. We can figure out how to do that together. We're smart enough and loving enough people to pull that off. I'm going to harken back to the time of the Great Plagues in Europe, just, you know, to end us on a cheerful subject. The words of Julian of Norwich, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I wrote this song for a friend's ordination up in Toronto. Her name is Pat Trudeau, the Reverend Pat Trudeau, a fairly newly minted Unitarian Universalist minister. But I wrote this for her ordination based on that one set of words, and based on the idea of what it means for us to inhabit whatever gifts we've been given in this world and cultivated. The chorus is, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. That's Julian of Norwich's piece. Then I add, wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. All will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. We gather here to witness and affirm the harmony of spirit and of heart, manifest within you, brought forth from deepest hope, to be a force of healing in this world. All will be well, all will be well, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things, all manner of things will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well, all will be well. You find your purpose in service to a light that emanates from each and every being that is in life. We see the gifts that blossom in your care, and the people who are nourished by your love. All will be well, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. May you go forth to mend what has been broken, to feed those who are hungry, to quench the ones who thirst, for a world of compassion, for mercy that abounds, and a place to dwell in sacred gentleness. All will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. One more time, all will be well. All will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. Wherever life may call you, wherever you may dwell, all will be well, all will be well. All will be well, all will be well.
Joe Jencks, that was tremendous, unbelievably beautiful and hopeful and healing. Thank you so much for bringing that precious, precious song to us, as well as your first song. It was a great journey to go on with you today.
Thank you. Absolutely my pleasure. I've got a couple upcoming concerts. If people are interested, you can go to joejencks.com, joejencks.com. There's one this Saturday, Emerald Concerts down in Florida, but of course I'll be doing it from my studio here in Illinois. And anybody can sign on to the YouTube. There's a bunch of concerts coming up in March, and if you go to the tour dates section, you can find more about that. And thank you, Joe, and thank you, Katie, for all your help. And yeah, just great being here with all of you.
Thank you so much. So the things popping up in the chat, which I'll send to you, are so beautiful. 2 beautiful songs. How can we be so lucky? And this is church, therapy, and music all wrapped up in one. Just lovely, lovely sentiments. And so before we give Joe another thanks, can I see how many hands in the room really love themselves some ethnomusicology geeks? All right, and then how about just any old geeks at all? All right, yeah, I'm gonna actually guess we have like a room full of geeks here. I'm certainly putting myself in that category. So Joe, you please visit all of the geekdom that you want to when you're going through an ethno lens or anything else. We are so happy to be the recipients of it. And thank you so much. So let's give Joe a big, huge round of silent applause that just comes with the sound of me saying thank you again. And I do want to thank all of the folks in this room who showed up, and there was a plenty of them at last night's Constructive White Conversations discussion, the anti-racist discussion group. Boy, is that a powerful place to be, and boy, does a lot happen there. And I hope you will all join again the last Wednesday in March when we will meet there again. Really amazing, amazing place. It doesn't have the music part of it that we get to do in here, but it has the discussion, and actually all two-way discussion. Everybody is able to speak, and it's beautiful. And I do want to encourage you to go find Joe on his website, find his upcoming events, check out the page with all that Library of Congress work. It's completely fascinating. Thank you again, Joe, so much for being here. Hope everyone will join us tomorrow. We have Saul Paul joining us in the room, also someone who came to us through the Library of Congress Archive Challenge Week. He is replaying by my request the Banana Boat song. If anybody in here was here, you don't want to miss it for time 2. And if you weren't here, you don't want to miss it for time 1. It was so much fun. So thank you for joining tomorrow. We have Phil Wiggins on Saturday. And as everyone knows, we're celebrating Esai Barnwell's 75th birthday in here on Sunday. So please be here. Yay! Please be here for the next few days. And March's Women History Weeks are looking so beautiful. And we'll have a flyer out very soon so you can see all that excitement. Thank you again, Joe Jencks. Thank you again, everybody in this room, and can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Arlene and Anna and Becky and Susan and David and Sarah, Carolyn and Janet, Dennis. Actually, Dennis, I need to meet with you. If you can stick around, that would be great. Kathy and Susan and Dagmar and Caroline and Bonnie and Renata, Christiana and Bob, Susan and Lisa and Deli and Kevin. Thank you so much for being here today. Tom and Fred and Dion and Valerie, Bob and Mabel, Susan, thank you so much. And Anne and Kate and let's see, Deborah, thank you. And Nancy, thank you so much. And Dick and Karen and Storm and Annette and Betsy and Lynn, Carol Beth, Jim, and now I'm saying goodbye to people I didn't say hi to. So the hi and the goodbye, Jim. Let's see, Jamie and Fran and Rosalie and Nicola. That's you who popped in with all those numbers. Glad to have you. Barbara and Gary. Thomasina, glad to see you again today. So happy to see your smiling face. Harriet and folks off video, Robert and Alan, Kathy, Doug, Cricket, Jane, Brian, Han. So also to the folks in the room who may be new to us, if you want to stick afterwards, I will unmute you and you can say a little hello. Let me know how you found us. Let me know if you want to be on the mailing list. All of that is optional, but if you feel like it, I'll be here. Jamie, Dan, thank you, Dick, Annette, Barbara, Jim, Sheila, everybody. If I missed you, wave. Nobody's waving. Love you all so much and can't wait to see you soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you also to everybody